The best gambling day of the year is here. Welcome, football fans, to your BLV Super Bowl 59 Best Bets Breakdown. In this video, I'm going to give you my best bet for an anytime touchdown score, for an MVP, some player props, and of course, looking at the total and the winner of the Super Bowl. So if that sounds good, Gronk, spike the like button, and don't forget to comment your best bet of Super Bowl 59. There's just so many ways to bet this game, which is why it's the best gambling day of the year, and it's finally here. Let's get to our Super Bowl 59 best bets. If you're wondering, Mitch, where are your bets? Well, Patreon is the place to go. And B, if you want to check out what I'm actually betting on the Super Bowl this year. Link in the description. I'll put it in the pinned comment as well. We're going to break it down. No graphics for this video. I'm simply going to have timestamps for you guys to filter through which sections you want to bet on. So let's begin with the touchdown scores. Guys that I believe have the best odds and are the best bets to score a touchdown in Super Bowl 59. Let's begin with the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts. I love Hurts to get in the end zone in Super Bowl 59. Why? Well, he did score 3 times last week in the NFC Championship. And of course, everyone knows the Eagles have a potent secret weapon that is not so secret. The, of course, brotherly shove, as some may call it. They might refer to it as a different name, but we're going to go with brotherly shove for YouTube's sake. Now, Jalen Hurts, he'll get into the end zone, whether it's on a designed run from 10 yards or out, or whether it's on the 1 yard line. And I do believe that 1 or 2 yard line, the Eagles are going to push them into the end zone, okay? I also think that because Jalen Hurts had so much success in Super Bowl 57 of getting into the end zone against the Chiefs, scoring 3 touchdowns in that game, 3 rushing touchdowns in that game, including a passing touchdown, that I think he's a really good bet at minus 115. I think this is as close to even odds on a player that you would fully expect to score in this game at least once. So at minus 115, I think he has a much better price than somebody like Saquon Barkley because they're pretty equal in terms of scoring a touchdown. Then on the other side for the Kansas City Chiefs, I would put my money on Kareem Hunt at plus 140. Kareem Hunt has scored in 4 consecutive games for the Kansas City Chiefs. He is their red zone running back. He is their primary back, and he is the trusted guy around the goal line. Why? Because he's one of the most successful running backs in short yardage this season. He's actually 5th best in terms of success rate running the ball at the running back position, which means he's always working and gaining positive yards. If you give Kareem Hunt the ball twice within 3 downs inside the 5 yard line, he's very likely to score because he's a human bowling ball. So at plus 140, a guy that scored 4 consecutive games for this team, I'm going to go with Kareem Hunt. Now, when it comes to some variations of scoring touchdowns, like 2+ touchdowns in a game, I do like Hurts or Saquon Barkley to score 2 touchdowns in the game. You can get that at plus 160. Saquon is obviously always a threat to score no matter where he is on the field. Last week, right, these guys went off. Like, Saquon had multiple touchdowns. Hurts had 3 touchdowns, as already mentioned. And the last 2 games, Hurts and Saquon have both scored multiple touchdowns. Okay, so this is very likely to happen in this game, that at least one of these guys for Philadelphia finds their way into the end zone, especially considering how much weaker the Chiefs have been against the run down the stretch. And if they overplay Saquon, it's very likely that Jalen Hurts can take it himself into the end zone. So plus 160, that's pretty good odds for either player to score 2 touchdowns in this game rather than just banking on one of them. And then another way to play this would be the first touchdown in the game, of course. And I like the Eagles to score the first touchdown in the game because I think the Eagles are more likely to lead at halftime because the Chiefs have trailed in 3 out of their 4 Super Bowl appearances with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and they were tied in the other. So that being said, it's likely that the Eagles will have the lead at halftime. They will likely score more points early in this game. The Chiefs tend to be slow starters offensively in Super Bowls. So I'm going to go with the Eagles side of things, and obviously Hurts or Saquon is most likely to score. So I'm going to go Hurts or Saquon to score the first touchdown in the game at plus 210. That's a really good price. So honestly, if I were to bet just one or two of these, I'd probably go with Hurts and Hunt on either side. And then I'd probably double down with Hurts or Saquon to score the first touchdown in the game. Because Saquon could take a 60-yarder to the house right away. Jalen Hurts, if they drive deep down the field, could push into the end zone, of course. And these two guys have also accounted for 11 of the Eagles' 20 first touchdowns this season. So 11 out of 20, that's over 50%, of course, they score the first touchdown for their team. So it's very likely that they get in the end zone first if you're the Philadelphia Eagles. On the brightest and biggest stage, they're going to put the ball in the hands of Jalen Hurts or Saquon Barkley, and probably far more likely to run than throw once they get close to the goal line against this Chief defense. They don't want to risk anything out there. So I like the Eagles to score the first touchdown. I'll go with Saquon, Hurts at plus 210. Now let's move into the player prop direction. I have 2 players that I want to focus on and then a little bit of a long shot in the player prop section. First is Dallas Goedert, who has become a very popular pick these last 2 weeks. I've really noticed he's become a really popular pick. I like Dallas Goedert to go over 49.5 receiving yards at minus 125. You might be able to find a better price at like 50 plus yards, something like that. It might be more worth it to bet Goedert to go over 50 or to go over 50.5. Something like that, and then maybe you get closer to even odds. So make sure you're checking the prices out, but I just saw 49.5 as the standard price, so I went with that at minus 125. Now, that being said, Goedert has a great matchup here. Of course, he had 6 catches on 7 targets for 60 yards in Super Bowl 57 against the Chiefs. He was one of the best players, in my opinion, in that game, constantly converting third downs for Jalen Hurts and hero plays. Goedert is also excellent against man coverage. He's the best tight end in football this year in yards per route run against man, and the Chiefs will test the Eagles with man coverage. Why? Because they want to stack the box and overplay Saquon in the run game, which will allow Goedert to get open on RPOs, play action, and also have great one-on-ones against possibly even linebackers in this game, where he's going to be able to feast with his 3.62 yards per route run, best in the NFL. The last, but certainly not least, is that the Chiefs were the worst team at allowing yardage to the tight end position. Not touchdowns, but yardage. 1,191 yards during the regular season. They also allowed the 4th most catches. But due to the way that the Eagles feature in their offense, they like to run the ball. They don't like to throw it with too many attempts. So receptions is a little risky. I'd rather go with the yardage because Goedert could break a couple big ones with after the catch or even third down and longs, which he did in Super Bowl 57. He could convert like a 12-yard, 3rd and 12, something like that, right? And catch like 15 yards. So definitely chunk plays are there to be had for Dallas Goedert. So I think 49.5 receiving yards. He should be able to feast on Justin Reed, on Hicks, on Bolton, on whoever's covering him in this game, okay? Tranquil, I think Goedert will have the one-on-one advantage, and he'll be the mismatch that the Chiefs kind of allow the Eagles to have, if you know what I'm saying. Now, on the other side of things, I like a sneaky play on Juju Smith-Schuster to go over 1.5 catches and over his receiving prop of 15.5 receiving yards. Because I think the Chiefs are going to have Juju feature in this game as their slot receiver. He was very good in Super Bowl 57, where he had 9 targets for 7 catches and 53 yards. That was the game in which they ended it with a pass interference, setting up the field goal to help them win the game at the last second. Remember that? Well, that was Juju running that route against James Bradberry. Juju's also very effective in the RPO game, and I think that will be heavily featured inside this game plan for the Chiefs because of how much match coverage that the Eagles tend to play. A lot of zone match, okay? So there's a lot of communication that has to happen there in terms of the defense, and understanding whether it's a run or a pass is the first part of that communication level that the Eagles secondary is going to have to sort out. And I do believe that the Chiefs are going to try to attack Cooper DeJean at nickel. They're going to try to attack Burks at linebacker and try to get those guys enticed to play the run so that they can throw it over their heads or even throw screens to guys like Juju for yards after catch. Last game, Juju went way over this. He had a really good AFC championship. He had 2 catches on 3 targets for 60 yards. He had 2 chunk gains against the Bills in a similar fashion where he was breaking long gains for Yak because he was open over the middle of the field. As I smack my mic, nothing new. I believe that Juju will have another good game here in the Super Bowl, and I think he will be one of the surprise good game players in this game, okay? So I like Juju in both his receptions and his yards. Now, the final prop from a player standpoint that I would look at is a little bit of a long shot, but Devontae Smith to lead the game in receiving at plus 550. Now, the reason I like Devontae Smith is because the Chiefs have allowed the highest yards per route run to wide receivers in the slot this season. Connor, the nickel corner of the Chiefs, allowed the 3rd highest completion percentage from the nickel position. And because Saquon is going to take up so much attention, and because of the buzz Dallas Goedert's getting at times this week, and then also because A.J. Brown is an absolute animal and will likely draw Trent McDuffie a lot of the time, I do believe Devontae Smith is a number 1 caliber receiver that simply the Chiefs cannot match up with. Jalen Watson is a perimeter corner, and Devontae Smith did feature at a 68% rate in the NFC Championship in the slot. He was also primarily their slot receiver during the regular season at just over 54%. So I believe that Devontae Smith will be featured in the middle of the field. I think if the Chiefs tend to go with more zone coverage behind their early down formations of having 3 linebackers on the field, more of a base defensive style where they're going to add Leo Chanel to the field, maybe even take Connor off of the field until 3rd down, right? I could see them trying to commit to stopping the run, which would force them into playing zone. Well, Devontae Smith is 15th in yards per route run against zone. He's more of their zone featured player as opposed to man coverage. And then if they go to 3rd down and it is man coverage, he has the best matchup on the field in terms of the receivers because it would likely be him drawing Watson or him drawing Connor on 3rd down compared to McDuffie, who would likely be playing A.J. Brown, right? So I like Devontae Smith to potentially have a home run game. He also had 99 yards and 100 yards the last time he played the Chiefs. I believe he actually had the most yards in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs in Super Bowl 57. He rather had just a little bit more than A.J. Brown or just a little bit less, but it was very, very close. I think he had more off the top of my head, okay? So this is a really good price at plus 550 because honestly, I don't see a Chief player really being in the mix for this. Maybe Travis Kelce could have another 100-yard game in the Super Bowl, but I don't know. I don't necessarily see it. He didn't really show up last week. He had a great game against the Texans. But other than Kelce, could it be Worthy if he catches a couple bombs? But we haven't seen Worthy really reach that 100 yards very often. It's a lot of 6 or 7 catches for 60 yards, right? So yardage is different than catches, right? Kelce could lead the game in receptions. Worthy could lead the game in receptions, but I really think it's between A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith to lead the game in yards because they're chunk players. And if the Chiefs are selling out to stop the run, that's going to leave one-on-ones on the perimeter where chunk plays for the Eagles are going to be had. So at plus 550, I think it's worth a roll of a dice for sure. Now, let's switch our conversation to the total. I have 2 different ways to play this in a non-traditional fashion. First, the team total of the Kansas City Chiefs sitting around 24.5. I would go under. And even if you think the Chiefs will win this game, I think it's fairly likely they win 24-20 or 24-21 or 23-20 or 23-21. I think it will be in that range at minus 118. Now, this is not my favorite bet that I've mentioned, but I do feel like there is a path where the Eagles win this game because of their defense, and there's a path that the Chiefs win this game because they confuse Jalen Hurts and they do a good job against Saquon, and it's just generally a defensive game. First of all, both teams like to possess the ball and go on very long drives, and the Eagles' defense is kind of made for that, right? They don't give up big plays at a very high rate at all. In fact, they're the best at not allowing explosive plays. So there's going to be a lot of long drives, right? There's going to be a lot of meticulous drives. So to me, I don't see a lot of points happening there. And then also, you talk about Fangio and how he has held Mahomes in recent outings. So the last 4 games against Mahomes, he has allowed 19 points per game and a 59% completion. There's been a lot made about how Fangio is 0-8 against Mahomes. Now, we're not really worried about the win or the loss in the total. We're worried about points. And when it comes to Mahomes, he has only 19 points per game over the last 4 games against this coordinator. Then you talk about it's the best defense in the NFL, the Eagles, right? And they're the best against behind the line of scrimmage passes, in which the Chiefs rely more on yards after catch than any team in the NFL. They throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage more than any team in the NFL. The Eagles match up really well there. The Chiefs don't run the ball particularly well, and the Eagles are second best in EPA against the run this year, right? And then you talk about yards per play. Okay, the Eagles are number 1 in the NFL in yards per play, but since week 5, they're the best in the next gen era in yards per play since they started Cooper DeJean in the slot. So I think that this defense is awesome. I think, honestly, it's maybe even a little slept on right now. And I think a lot of people expect Mahomes to just go up and down the field, but this has not been their offense all year. They really did feast against Buffalo, but Buffalo was not a great defense. They were an average defense, a defense that Mahomes has traditionally not struggled very much with, right? Like, he has always played well against Sean McDermott. Andy Reid's always had that game plan against Sean McDermott. Against the Texans, they struggled to move the ball, and that was a similarly caliber defense to the Eagles. So to me, I think even if the Chiefs win, it's likely that they go under 24.5. If you just want to take the total in the game at like 48.5, I understand that as well. I totally get that. So either way, that makes sense. But that would be my total. Now, a better way maybe even to play this is that there will be total points between 41 and 50 at plus 200. I think it's very likely that both teams score in the low 20s. Like, I think it's extremely likely. The total is 48.5 for a reason, or 48, or flirting around that range. So 41 to 50 feels likely, especially if you lean towards the under in the game. Because again, long possessions, a lot of plays, both offenses aiming to keep the other offense off the field, both offenses aiming to be the one that wins time of possession, right? Because one is Saquon Barkley led, one is a very short passing led offense, and that's the way that the Chiefs like to attack. Both defensive coordinators, in my opinion, are awesome and elite. Steve Spagnuolo, especially in big games, and then Vic Fangio on the defensive side for the Eagles is the best coordinator I think Mahomes has played in any Super Bowl ever. And the Chiefs are first in time of possession and plays per drive, which means they eat the clock and they go, on long, deliberate drives, as we've mentioned. The Eagles are also first in rushing attempts, which also bleeds the clock. And then they're fourth in time per drive as well. So both teams like to play a similar style, and both teams have good defenses. And I would honestly say that with 2 weeks to prepare, I think both of the defenses have the advantages over the offenses, because I think the Chiefs offense is just not that talented. While I feel like the defense of the Eagles is way more talented, and I think Fangio kind of has familiarity with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes enough to slow them down, especially early in the game. While on the other side, I feel like the Eagles have more talent than the Chiefs defense, but I would argue that Spagnuolo gives them the advantage over Kellen Moore and Jalen Hurts. So to me, the defenses both have the advantages in terms of personnel on one side and game plan on the other. So that's where I would go. Points in between 41 to 50. So you're aiming at a score around 24-21. You could have it even 27 to 20. Like, that might even be a better bet at plus 200 than the Chiefs going under 24.5. If you think the Chiefs will score 27 and win 27 to 23, that would still land at 50, right? So you'd still win this bet. So to me, that might even be the best total bet at 41 to 50 points at plus 200. Now let's move to the MVP conversation. I think if you like the Eagles to win the game, I would probably bet Saquon at plus 240, because I think he's the most likely, given the narrative and given the fact that he didn't win the MVP, or I even think didn't even receive a vote for the MVP. So I think it's very likely that if he goes on his birthday, right, the narrative that they've had all year, the historic season that he had, it's very likely that it's almost like a recognition of his excellence this entire season. Kind of like Cooper Kupp in 2021. Like, not to say Cooper Kupp wasn't an MVP in that Super Bowl, but like, he had a very strong game. It's it's probably likely Saquon does something similar where he has a very strong game. And yeah, you could have given it to Stafford, or you could have given it to Aaron Donald, or you could have given it to maybe somebody else. But everyone kind of decided before the game that if Saquon has 100 yards and Saquon scores a touchdown and maybe has one or two electric plays, that he's going to win MVP if they win, right? So Saquon at plus 240 if you like the Eagles. Jalen Hurts, though, he might be the best bet in terms of he's plus 375 and he's a quarterback. You don't usually get odds like that, right? So Jalen Hurts, the fact that he could steal the touchdowns from Saquon, the fact that the Eagles were pass heavy in Super Bowl 57 because the Chiefs sold out to stop their run so much, and because Jalen Hurts has had the most yards in his career in the regular season against the Chiefs, the most yards in his career in the postseason against the Chiefs, the narrative of the revenge angle from him having a historic 3 rushing touchdown day and 4 touchdowns, and probably was the best player in Super Bowl 57 on that day. He was probably even better than Mahomes, but they lost, so he didn't win the award, right? A lot of people were arguing that he should have won MVP even though they lost. That's the way people were looking at that game. So there is also a narrative for Jalen Hurts. Yeah, there is a narrative for Saquon, his birthday, the historic season, but at the same time, there's also the narrative for Jalen Hurts of the revenge. There's narrative that he has been overlooked the whole year. There's narrative that what if the Eagles actually sneakily throw the ball more than we're expecting? So at plus 375, that to me is a really good bet, just based on the odds alone and the likeliness that the Eagles have to throw more than we maybe think. And finishing this off with a variety of winner margin bets. So I am not just going to give you the spread here, and I'm not just going to give you a money line, all right? I do think that this Super Bowl is very even. I did pick the Chiefs just because I have more faith in Mahomes and their coaching staff at the end of the day, and that's even though I think the Eagles are more talented. So I'm going to go through the ways that I think this game could go and the best bets that I believe. So I think if you like the Chiefs to win, I would bet the Chiefs by 1 to 6 points at plus 290. I think it's almost a guarantee on my part that the Chiefs would win within 6 points. I think it's a guarantee. Similar to the Niners game last year or the Eagles game the first time around. I think it would come down to a last-second field goal, a last-second possession. I think the Eagles are too talented to get blown out. I just don't see it. And the Chiefs just don't blow out teams. They just don't do it. It's very, very rare, right? And they've won 17 consecutive one-score games or something like that. So with that in mind, at plus 290, if you like the Chiefs, I'd almost be willing to place one of these bets on the Chiefs, and I probably will place one of these bets on the Chiefs and one of these bets on the Eagles and kind of have myself covered. Another way you could play this if you like the Eagles, okay, is you could go Eagles by 4 or more at plus 165, because I think if it's likely that if the Eagles win this game, it's by margin. It's by more than a field goal, right? It's by a touchdown. Maybe their defense gets a late stop on Mahomes, or maybe they just secure it with a touchdown at the end, or perhaps they even win by 10 or something like that. If you think that the Eagles will win by margin, maybe even the better bet is Eagles by 8 or more at plus 310 to win by 2 scores. The only time the Chiefs lost this season was by 2 scores, was against the Bills, right? So that is a conversation, because I feel like if the Eagles do win, it's likely that they get ahead early and they secure it late by running the football, and their defense shows up in a major way. And you could almost see it not quite like the Bucs Super Bowl where it's a complete blowout, but like a 31-20 game, or like a 27-17, or like I'm just throwing out scores, 28-20. That's not even 2 scores. 28, you know what I'm saying, right? That's what I'm saying is 30 to, you could see 30 to 17, 30 to 20. That could all happen. So a long shot to me, and it's almost playing it in 2 different ways. So if you if you think it will be a close game, I would lean Chiefs by 1 to 6. If you think that the Eagles have a chance to win, I would maybe even place a little bit on Eagles to win by 2 scores, or Eagles to win by 4 or more. It depends on how confident you are, right? 4 or more plus 165, 8 or more 310, okay? Either team to win by 3 or less is at plus 275, but that's a very, very narrow margin, but at least you get either team in that case. I just don't know how many times this game will be won by the Eagles by a field goal. I mean, that would be kind of surprising to me, you know, like just given how good the Chiefs have been in these close games. But I think maybe even the best bet based on the odds is the halftime final bet of taking the Eagles to win the first half, but the Chiefs winning the game. Because that's happened in 3 different Super Bowls already. Like, other than the one they lost to Tom Brady, 550, you know, they came back against the Niners twice. They came back against the Eagles, and they could do it again. So, like, 550, it's the same price as Devontae Smith leading the game in receiving. Eagles to lead at halftime, Chiefs to win the game. That might be, if you like the Chiefs, combine that by Chiefs by 1-6, you might have a huge payday on your hands. Yeah, like 2 separate bets, obviously, but that might be the way to go. I mean, I'm just saying, just because this is how they've played every single Super Bowl. They have trailed in every single Super Bowl they've been in, and they have trailed in every single Super Bowl except for one at halftime where they were tied, I think, in their first Super Bowl against the Niners. I think it was 10-10, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, guys, that's the way I would play it in terms of winners and margins. I probably wouldn't bank on just one team winning because I think there is a chance that either team can win. I think there's a strong chance that either team can win. I view it as the Eagles have most of the mismatches, most of the player personnel matchups that really dictate the game. But at the same time, the Chiefs have just proven so much more. They've got the quarterback advantage, they got the coaching advantage, and they're so good in those close games that you can see them pulling it out. So, like, I can see how this game could go in 2 different avenues. So that's why I want to kind of play into that at the same time, right? So you guys let me know what you think of my best bets in this video. I wanted to lay out as many different categories and ways to bet this game as possible. Let me know what you thought. And of course, check out Patreon for my official bets, where I'll probably not have like 10 to 15 this year, but I'll probably have it at around probably 5 to 10 bets. A decent sample of 5 to 10 bets for the Super Bowl. Let me know what you guys think. It's Mitch. Thank you so much for watching. Gronk spike the like button. Thanks for watching Best Bets this year, guys. Peace.